If you want to avoid jealous, insecure, miserable people, raise your standards. You see, jealous people cannot stand someone with high standards. And having high standards does not mean that you think you're better than somebody. It doesn't mean that you look down on other people. There is just a level of expectation you have for your life. And because of that, you cannot accept certain people in your inner circle. See, having jealous people in your inner circle is dangerous for you. And if you do not recognize the signs and the clues and the red flags of jealousy in the beginning, you will deal with many of the things that I have spoken about on this channel. And I'm going to leave the link to videos on jealousy in the description box so you can follow those after this. But there is a way that you can avoid jealous people by raising your standards in at least 4 key areas of your life. Number 1, in your relationships. You can avoid having a relationship with a jealous, insecure man, and you don't normally find this out until later down the line, by having a high standard from the very beginning. When you date men, you have to ask yourself, am I allowing this man to just take me wherever he wants to take me? Am I allowing him to call me whenever he feels like it? I really don't have an expectation. I don't want to appear too clingy or needy, so I just let him do whatever he wants to do. Am I the type of woman that's okay with my man just coming in the house late at night, all early hours of the morning, with no expectation, without no explanation for me? Am I the kind of woman who is okay with doing the heavy lifting in the relationship? Have I set the bar so low that now I am a workhorse and a work mule, all because I never had an expectation for my man? You see, when you don't have an expectation in the beginning of your relationship, you will find yourself in a hard position when you suddenly shift your thinking and raise your standard. That's when you will see that jealous behavior and that insecurity pop out of a man. If you are the kind of woman, and I hope you're not, but if you're the kind of woman who says, you know what, baby, I got it. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. I got it. And suddenly you wake up and realize, no, I am the feminine soft space in the relationship. I'm supposed to turn to him and say, what are we going to do? Yes, we work together, but we work together in different ways. I'm not supposed to be doing all of the heavy lifting. I'm not supposed to be doing any of the heavy lifting, really. That is his job. When you set that standard, when you turn it around and say, I want to be the woman in my relationship, I want to be traditionally feminine, you can tell if you're dealing with the jealous, insecure man, because the first thing he's going to say to you is, oh, now you too good to work 10 hours a day. Oh, now you too good to split the bills. Oh, you too good for that now. What's gotten into you? You know, that kind of mindset, that kind of thinking. But if you have the expectation from the beginning that working outside the home might be optional for me, but it shouldn't be mandatory because you are to provide and protect. And I use this as an example because this is the one that many women struggle with, especially in the beginning, because you have that ride or die chick mentality. And we all grew up with that. We all grew up with the, I'm going to hold my man down, ride or die, whatever he need, I got him. Until you realize that kind of mentality is what causes you to stroke out early in life. So when it comes to your relationships, number 1, you must have a high standard and expectation for the man in your life. Do you want a man who is able to provide and protect? If you want that, that is something that you should make known in the beginning. It is harder to course correct that kind of behavior later on in life, opposed to just setting the standard in the beginning. Trust me, my man has always been a provider, but I used to be more of the workhorse, go, go, go kind of woman. And I didn't really have too much of an expectation. I'm having full transparency with you. My husband, because he is a follower, because he is a man of faith, he understands his role. But there were many times where I was just trying to call roughshod over him because I was that go, go, go woman, in control. If I'm not doing it, it's not done right. And what happened is that my body fought against me and I broke down. And when you have a standard in the beginning, what's going to happen, or if you change your standard, if you're dealing with a man who understands that you are a woman and that you've been out of balance and now you want to get into where you're supposed to be, either he's going to show his jealousy and insecurity and not going to accept your standard, or he's going to follow suit and understand that he needs to do what he needs to do as a man. The expectation is set and he's going to follow that. So if you want to weed out jealousy, insecurity, and misery in your relationship in the future, set the standard high when it comes to your expectation for a man, for a husband, or whoever, for your fiance. All right? Number 2, expectation and where you need to raise your standards to avoid jealous, insecure people, your friendships. When you begin to become friends with women, when you are in a circle, let's say you're at school, you're at work, you're at, different events, you're networking, you're in business. If you're in the neighborhood and you're just starting to get friendly with other people, you want to have a high standard set in the very beginning when you meet that woman. Now, when it comes to things like that, ladies, you don't necessarily have to be a woman of high standards. You want to set a high standard when you meet that woman. Meaning, for example, if the woman comes in your home, and if you know you're the type of woman, because you should be a woman that has high standards, but what I mean by that, you don't have to be like caviar, country club kind of woman to have a high standard. When a woman comes in your home and she's being friendly to you, but you see she might be a little bit rough around the edges possibly. For me, I don't like to really deal with too many women who are rough around the edges and they carry that like some kind of badge of honor, because for me that's like a angry kind of way of being. I just don't like that constant urge to pop off. But some people, that's just their personality. But as I was saying with the boundary, let's say you invite someone into your home. You're not going to, unless you do this, and I advise you not to, you're not going to have somebody come in your house. There should be a level of, how can I say it? They should feel the vibe when they walk in your house. They should walk in your home and say, oh, when I walk in her house, I'm not going to come in here with no booty shorts on. I'm not going to come in here smoking my cigarette. Like, I can feel that that's not an acceptable thing to do in her house. If you have women in your circle that can't pick up on the vibe of how you move and how you live, that's not your circle. And if you have women who are still around you, even though they know they're not really vibing with how you live, they come in your house and see you sipping tea instead of taking shots of Hennessy or whatever. If they walk in your house and see you, listening to soft music and you're not cussing, listening to trap music unless you're working out, they might still stick around because they want to pick apart what you're doing and they take little pot shots. Those are not the kind of women you want to be around. So you want to be your authentic self. And this is how you can weed out jealousy in the beginning of your friendships, by being your authentic self. Do not try to adjust your personality or the way you are in order to blend in with a group of people. Because when you do that, when you begin to show your true self, they're not going to like you if they're a jealous person. If you're a woman who doesn't go out twerking every night, you don't do all these different ratchet things, but in the beginning, you position yourself as a woman who likes to do those kind of things, and then suddenly you change up and now you're more of that soft girly girl, going to the mall, reading books, listening to soft music, looking at documentaries, talking to your girlies online, whatever you're doing, not those same things. You're going to have a jealous friend, and having a jealous friend is nothing more than having an enemy. A woman you truly don't vibe and connect with is not your friend. That will be a jealous, energy draining spirit that you will have to deal with continuously until you get bold enough to shut down the relationship. So the way you can avoid jealous women, jealous friends in the very beginning is to be your authentic self. If you're a woman who doesn't like to drink, don't go out to the bar acting like you're going to drink and do all these different things if that's not you. Because all you're going to do is attract a bunch of little ratchet friends that you really don't like, but because you want to feel like you belong to something and someone, you have now lowered your standard. You have been inauthentic, not truly being yourself. And now you're dealing with a bunch of people who really don't like you because they can kind of tell you're being fake. We don't do fake. You can avoid that by being your authentic self in the beginning when it comes to your friendships. The number 3 way and standard that you need to raise in order to avoid jealous, insecure people, raise your standards when it comes to your places of employment and the things you choose to do as far as business, money, and work. If you are the kind of woman you can't stand the sight or the idea of touching another person, you wouldn't be the doctor, you wouldn't be the nurse, you wouldn't be any of that. Don't allow people to push you into going to school for something that you yourself really don't like to do. And this really isn't so much has to do with jealousy as much as it has to do with just having a standard and not allowing people to mold you into what they want you to be. See, having a standard for your life weeds out not only jealous people, but it also weeds out people who have a desire to control you and make you what they want you to be. I had so many people in my ear telling me, you need to be a hairstylist, you need to be in this, like anything to do with beauty. And they meant well, of course. But for me, that's not really what I like to do. I like to do it for fun. I like to make myself look beautiful, my daughter. I like to do friends' hair, things like that in my spare time. But I know how women can be. We can be very demanding when it comes to our hair, nails, all that kind of stuff. I just don't have time. I like to orate. I like to motivate and encourage. I really believe I should have been like a therapist or a psychologist, but hey, that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do what they wanted me to do. And I just say that to say, being authentic, and it kind of ties into number 3, having that standard for what you want to do. Let's lower it a little bit. And this is for the young ladies for a moment. When you're first starting off in life, and this is a little sidebar, when you're first starting off in life, a lot of people will tell you that, your first job, get a little job at McDonald's, get a little job at, a Walmart or whatever. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. From what I'm hearing, Walmart, you could start off at like $20 an hour. That's not little. But I mean little compared to back in the day where, minimum wage was like $7.80. I never understood how I survived on $7.80 when I was a teenager still. But I digress. Don't set the bar so low when you are starting off in life. My daughter's first job, I want her first job to be at a bank. Not because, she's too good for McDonald's or too good for retail, but because you don't have to start so low in life. When you make connections with people who are in higher places, and we don't go by status and standard, but unfortunately, the world looks at you according to your status too. So if you are a woman, and this is the way I'm saying you need to raise your boundary, when it comes to status and the kind of people you interact with, your place of employment, the places you choose to frequent, that is going to matter in whether or not you attract jealous people. Because if you are constantly in places where people are just getting by, just trying to make it, some of these jobs I named, you have some people, it's the same kind of sob story. And I'm not knocking it. I have done it all. I've worked in Kmart. I've worked in Family Dollar. I've worked in those kind of places. But my point of saying this is that a lot of times you become the sum total of the people that you're around. And if you are around people who, their cap is McDonald's. Like that's all they aspire to do. And I do not say this to put down anyone because everybody has their own roadblocks. Everybody has their own issues and reasons why they feel stuck. But when you are a woman who has a high standard and an expectation for your life, you can't afford to be around people who the top is McDonald's or the top is Walmart, unless you plan to own one of those or unless you plan to become the CEO, CFO, and so forth. You see, when you're in proximity to people who are doing a little bit better than yourself, that motivates you to do better. But if you're around people constantly who don't have any expectation and they're fine being at the bottom for a very long time, when you begin to level up and you take on those people as friends and associates, not saying you shouldn't, and hopefully you have people that are in that environment who will still love you and you'll still love them, even though you don't want to stay at the bottom with them. And this is where the jealousy comes in. When you decide, you know what, I need to do something better than this. Like, I could be doing more than this. I've seen it happen in workplaces I've been in. When somebody decides they want to be a manager and they don't want to be an employee for the next 20 years. They want to be a manager. They want to be a supervisor. They want to be an owner. People start treating you differently. They get a little bit jealous. And once again, the favorite line, oh, you think you're better. Oh, you think you can't. Wait, what's wrong? If I can do this, why you can't do it? Because I'm not you. See, people who have a little bit of jealousy and insecurity, for the life of them, they can't understand why somebody would not want to do better. Why would you want to do better? It's always somebody else's fault. And people with a victim mentality, they will have you thinking, oh, you're young. You're too young to do this. Oh, because you're black, because you're a black woman. You know it's harder for us. That discouragement talk. People who are jealous and insecure, they will try to discourage you from moving forward in your work, in your business, and in your finances. And because of that, you want to make sure you have a high standard for the places that you choose to work from the very beginning. I'm not saying if you're in a dire need, sometimes, unfortunately, you might be in a position where you got to take whatever's available at the moment. But don't lower your standard to the point where you allow people to persuade you to stay at the bottom. That's my point of saying that. So number 3 way that you need to raise your standard is in the area of the workplace and the places you choose to work. I must say, I entered my lowest point, and I've given you this story before, I believe. When I started working at Aldi's, when I was moving that little hand jack and getting them pallets of meat and all of that, oh my goodness, that was my lowest point. And I'm not knocking Aldi's, I'm not knocking people who work there. Everything is not for everybody, but that was not for me. Full transparency, when I felt that chicken juice, that raw chicken juice rolled down my arm, I said, no, I can't do this. This is not me. I'm better than this. I said, God, forgive me, but I am better than this. I don't believe this is your will for me. And I got up out of there. So you must understand that even where you choose to work, have a higher standard, be around people who understand that, you know, you want to be a corporate girl, you want to own your own business. I believe for women, entrepreneurship is the way. If you want to own your time, be an entrepreneur, but I'll do another video on that topic, okay? So that was the number 3 way you need to raise your standard in order to avoid jealous people. Start at the top when it comes to your career endeavors and when it comes to your business ventures. Don't allow anybody to keep you at the bottom. And then number 4 way, you need to raise your standards in order to avoid jealous, insecure people. Look at your neighborhood and where you choose to live. And if you live in a certain place where you are around people, and this is for people, and I know this might be different than what people are used to hearing, but I'm from the inner city, and I know a lot of people can identify with this. When you grew up in what they call the hood, the ghetto, you live in the projects, all that kind of stuff, you are surrounded by people oftentimes who that's all they know. And I can tell you, growing up many a times, we were just around people who just were just hanging out. They just hanging. You know, you see them sitting on the step when you go to school, and when you come back from school, that same person is still sitting on the step with the cigarette, just sitting on the step, just sitting, talking, doing nothing, accomplishing nothing. If you want to be a woman who avoids jealous people, you got to get out of there. I'm sorry, because nothing will hold you back more than living in the hood, living in the projects, living in the ghetto. And I'm not saying in the inner city where it might be a little rough. I mean in the heart of the ghetto. Nothing will harden you and discourage you more than staying around people. And I'm not saying everybody who lives in the projects has this mentality, but living in an environment, period. You could be in a trailer park. I'm not just saying about a certain ethnicity. You could live in a trailer park in the valley. People who have a stuck mentality, if you're around those people long enough and you begin to level up, oh, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem with Pookie and them because they're not used to seeing you look and move and act the way you look and move. See, I say those things because when you live, especially when you live in like the hood, projects, those little apartments, people see everything you do. And God, my goodness, if you get a new car, you get something new, they're going to be scoping you out and you suddenly become a target. That's the reason why many people, when they come up in life, and for me, I must say, when I say come up in life, this world standards to me, it doesn't mean anything. But unfortunately, people look at you from the outer appearance, so I'm speaking that way. My value comes from God. But when people see you doing better, so-called coming up in life, you become a target for jealous people. It has happened to celebrity and regular person alike. I have mentioned the young lady many times who opened her own salon. Her friends didn't like it and the way they responded. There have been many celebrities who have lost their lives, all because they went from humble beginnings to being a complete star. It will be very hard for you to level up in the same environment where people have that stuck crabs in a barrel mentality. So you must change your standard. The moment you are able to, you have to get out of there. That's like when people have some kind of substance issue and they go and get help and they recommend that they do not go back into that same environment they came from, because they know if they go back into that same environment, they are going to lapse right back into the same behaviors. And if you are around people or in close proximity to people who have a stuck, stagnant mindset, who are just okay with everybody else being in control of their life, whether it be government, whether it be, other people, whatever it is, you will be stuck just like them. And if you're not willing to be like them, you will be hated on and vilified by them. And you will become a target of their jealousy and envy. My goodness, it's not even fair to you to have to live in a place where you can't show that you're doing better because out of fear, if they see I got a new car, they're going to start treating me different. If they see I got this, or if they see my kids got new shoes on, yeah, sometimes it gets that bad. So where you live and where you choose to stay, and if you're in that environment right now and you can't afford to leave, go there to go to sleep and go somewhere else during the day. Go to work or whatever you do, but don't be in that area. I've said this in many other videos. Go into places where you desire to be. If you want to live more in a country or suburban or where people are more leveled up in what they're doing, make sure you visit those places often. Go to their restaurants, go to their clubs, not clubs, but like country clubs or, restaurants. Shop in those areas, but don't stay right in that same area where you live. Because I'm telling you, being around people who just trying to get by, it's always that good times mentality, that will keep you stuck and stagnant and make you a target for jealous people. So that was 4 areas where you need to raise your standards in order to avoid jealous people. And I'm going to post the link to more videos on jealousy and envy in the description box below. If you watch this video until the very end, put the high heel emoji in the comment section. I absolutely love to see it. Raise your standards, avoid jealous people. Take care.